A reading from the 8th chapter of the Gospel according to St. Matthew. When Jesus came to the country of the Gadarenes, 2 demoniacs coming out of the tombs met him. They were so fierce that no one could pass that way. Suddenly they shouted, "What have you to do with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now a large herd of swine was feeding at some distance from them. The demons begged him, "If you cast us out, send us into the herd of swine." And he said to them, "Go." So they came out and entered the swine, and suddenly the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and perished in the water. The swineherds ran off, and on going into the town, they told the whole story about what had happened to the demoniacs. Then the whole town came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their neighbourhood.
It's the stuff of children's nightmares. 2 dangerous men living in the tombs, ready to attack anyone who goes near them. You can imagine parents telling their children to keep away, or the demons lurking in these places of the dead will get them. What comes over very strongly in this reading is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the unexplainable. Fear of the inexplicable. Fear lies deep in everyone's hearts. The world can be an uncertain and frightening place. First of all, we have the fear of the townspeople, afraid of the demons inhabiting the caves where their dead lay buried. We have their fear of Jesus, begging him to leave after he'd healed the men. And let's not forget the fear of the 2 men, or they could have been women, who were so violent that they'd been cast out by society, and rather like those with leprosy, would have had to live in remote places far away from human civilization. Nowadays, of course, the 2 demoniacs, as Matthew called them, would be labelled as psychotic, schizoid, or whatever. They'd be put in secure psychiatric hospitals, given medication, and might possibly be sufficiently healed to be able to return to the world. We'd talk about hereditary, childhood influences, poor social conditions, but we wouldn't say that they were inhabited by demons. In our civilized world, we don't believe in demons, do we? There's a lot we don't believe in. Evil, the devil, anything that borders on the supernatural. It makes us uncomfortable. But the danger is that in our secular 21st century world, we try and close our eyes and refuse to acknowledge that there are many things in our world that are totally beyond our understanding. As Shakespeare put it so well when Hamlet said to his friend, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." Evil does exist. We might not personalise it by calling it the devil or demons, but the fact can't be swept under the carpet. Jesus was tempted in the wilderness by the devil. We might translate that today by saying that psychologically he faced temptations which he overcame, but the meaning is the same. So however we like to think of those 2 poor, tormented people scratching out some sort of existence among the tombs, whether they were infected by demons or a prey to some kind of mental disorder, the result is the same. I was writing this reflection during a thunderstorm. I rather like thunderstorms. I find them exciting, but they do bring home the awesome power of nature, albeit from the comfort and safety of my living room. Cushioned as we are in this corner of the Midlands, we can watch wildfires, floods, droughts and other extreme weather conditions and feel sympathy for those experiencing them, yes, but in some way we're distanced from them. They're remote, almost like watching a film. In 1883, H.G. Wells wrote a book, War of the Worlds, about an invasion by aliens. When the book was adapted for radio in 1938, there were many who thought it was real. People ran screaming into the streets. Some even threw themselves off buildings. Invasion by aliens is an increasingly popular theme in video games and in films. From our childhood enjoyment of stories about monsters and wicked witches in woods, we learn to handle and cope with external fears, so long as they aren't real, and it all comes right in the end. Fear is a constant throughout our lives. It can take many forms. When I was in my teens, I was convinced that the world was going to end in a nuclear holocaust during the Cuban crisis of 1962. And like many of us, I can remember exactly where I was when the horror of the 9/11 terrorist attacks took place. Today, world events such as the war in Ukraine, growing hostility between nations, the acceleration of climate change, and more recently, the rapid development of artificial intelligence, all fuel our fears. And of course, fear is also closer to home. Fear for one's children, for one's loved ones, for oneself. Fear of sickness, old age, unemployment, being unable to pay bills. It's sad but understandable that thousands of children who experienced the lockdowns during the COVID pandemic aren't attending school because they're afraid. Jesus went to the country of the Gadarenes, on the other side of the Sea of Galilee. He encountered two people possessed by demons coming out of the tombs, and what did he do? He didn't leave them, metaphorically passing by on the other side. He didn't destroy them. He healed them. God came as Jesus to heal a tormented, fractured world. He came to heal us. God has a plan for us. He's committed to us, and nothing at all can separate us from the love of God. So why did the townspeople react as they did? Why did they beg Jesus to leave? After the two men were healed, the swineherds ran off and told everyone in the town what had happened. They probably had a bit of a job explaining to the owner of the swine that it wasn't due to their carelessness that a herd of probably valuable pigs had drowned, but due instead to a miracle worker. You might think that Jesus would have been hailed as a hero. Instead, the townspeople begged him to leave. Was it because events beyond their comprehension made them uncomfortable? It's understandable, but it's sad for them and for all those who hear and turn away from God's healing. Quite possibly, when Jesus came among them, they saw the reality of his power and they were frightened. The power Jesus exercised was based on healing and love. We're not left in the tombs of Gadara alone with our demons. We're not alone when we lie sleepless in the small hours, tormented by worries and fears. We should keep in the forefront of our minds Jesus saying, "I am with you, even to the end of the world." Amen.